There's a lot of, I mean, Haley Williams posted on Absolute Punk once and crashed the site because too many people came on there and told her to come to Brazil. Which for years I thought was the origin of the come to Brazil meme, but it turns out it predates that.
It turns out nobody goes to Brazil. Is the actual
the Brazilians have wanted us to come for a long time.
They have been out here this whole time, but sometimes you're Haley Williams and they need you the most out of anybody.
City Mouth got to come to Brazil on like one of their tour announcement posts, or I think like the one tour announcement post recently.
Amazing. That's so good. Welcome to Noise Floor, a podcast about music and our favorite artists' discographies. I'm Matt Kistler.
And I'm Troy Sennett.
And today we're starting a new series. We are going to be talking about the discography of Mitski, starting with her first album, Lush, recorded all the way back released back in 2012, probably recorded mostly in 2011. I don't have exact dates on that. But this was self-released in January of 2012. Recorded entirely at SUNY Purchase, the State University of New York. That's what SUNY stands for.
Yeah.
And released while Mitski was still in college, not unlike, I believe, her second album, which we'll talk about next week. But this album is called Lush. It was produced by Scott Moriarty, recorded and mixed, and like kind of produced as he puts it. And then all music was written by Mitski. There are several other players here, but I did fail to write them down, and they are not credited anywhere on the internet. There was a very nice podcast interview that we found with the podcast, and I'm going to try to get the title of this correct. This is the greatest song I've ever heard in my entire life, where they talked to Scott and a lot of people who are maybe left out of the credits online are mentioned there. We encourage you to listen to that, but we'll be talking about it a bunch here. I am going to admit up front that I do not have any history with this album. I had been putting off listening to it for no particular reason except that I didn't know that it existed for a very long time. But I have been a fan of Mitski since around the time of Puberty 2, which is, I think, the time that most folks became aware of her, and yeah, I've just been a huge fan ever since. I saw her at Pitchfork back in the mid 2010s on the Blue stage. It was amazing. A few years later, saw her headlined the entire festival, which was likewise amazing. And yeah, I've just kind of been on board since that album. Troy, what's your history with Mitski in general?
I remember hearing her name pop up around the time Bury Me at Makeout Creek came out. I don't remember if I listened to that album at the time. If I did, it didn't make a super strong impression on me. But I'm similar to you. I got really on board with Puberty 2. I think that Your Best American Girl is like one of the greatest songs I've ever heard. One of the greatest songs I've ever heard in my life. Like that podcast. It is. That's a pretty spectacular record. I'm very excited to talk about that one in a few weeks. But I also never really went backwards, especially not this far backwards. I knew that I remember hearing at the time, like, oh, she's got a couple other albums that are sort of, ephemera, early recording type things. And no one was, I don't think I ever heard anyone be like, oh, these are essential listening. But going back to this album this week was kind of a delight. I think this album's really good.
I also think this album is really good. I kind of seeing, just for some additional background, much like the first Rilo Kiley EP, this kind of went through a couple different versions. There was an original release on Bandcamp back in 2012 when it came out, which included the song Real Men, and had a slightly different track list than what you would currently see on Bandcamp or would currently see on streaming services. Real Men was eventually taken out of the Bandcamp release. And it kind of made me wonder, like, oh, is this one of those albums that maybe doesn't hold up? Maybe has, I mean, my understanding is that Mitski looks back on some of these songs and is like, I feel like I should not have committed that to tape, like that particular feeling. But
doesn't feel that way about stuff you made
not?
when you were in your early 20s or teens or whatever.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. But no, like, I think honestly, like, given the constraints that were being worked with here, insofar that like they had the school studio available to them, and a smattering of musician friends that could help out, and were like kind of more or less building this album up from not quite nothing. But my understanding is that Mitski came to Scott with Liquid Smooth and Pearl Diver as just piano and vocal songs, and was like, here's what I got. I want to build an album from here. And then like wrote songs as they went, and like kind of went back and forth on like how these songs should sound, what kind of like arrangements they'd want to have, which ultimately results in a really like kind of diverse sonically record that holds together pretty well, all told, which again, shocking for people in college.
Right. No, what it reminded me most of was the Audition, the first Janelle Monáe record that we talked about, because that, yes, I think that has a similar totally like that. Here's an absurd talent, kind of quite young, figuring it out. Like, what do I want to sound like? What kind of arrangements do I want to use? What kind of approach do I want to take to songwriting, to production? And it's like, it's early work, but it's not like juvenilia. It's not, this isn't like those first couple Conor Oberst records that we sort of breezed over because they are truly like he was 13.
Yeah.
And so like, I think this is I found so much commonality between those two albums, their approaches. They're somewhat having been not entirely disowned in this case, at least like mostly ignored by the artists that made them. And so I think they're just interesting parallels. But this album has, for a first album, has such an interesting, like the exploratory nature of the composition, along with, I think, like identity and the idea of like, who am I? What is the, what will my future hold? What is the what is the kind of person that I want to be or can be, is like the sort of obsession, the central idea of the album lyrically. And those things play together in really cool ways.
Yeah, I think really the only thing that truly strikes me from this album as like, I don't want to say clearly, but like, I guess somewhat clearly being written by a person in their late teens, early 20s. I did not do the math on that. Is this kind of sense that like out there somewhere there is a state of personage where you have like figured it out. And like a thing that you learn with age, and people tell you this all the time, but you kind of have to experience it for yourself, is that you don't really, you kind of do your best and you go from there. And like, I was talking to a friend of mine about this the other day at dinner. The question came up of like, what was something that you believed 10 years ago that you don't believe anymore? And one of our younger friends was like, I thought that like, there was just like a point at which I would know what was going on 100% of the time. And I'd just like, that would be my life going forward. And I'm realizing that doesn't happen. And I'm like, yep, that sounds like something I also believed 15-ish or so years ago.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very like early 20s idea. This idea that, I mean, or at least early 20s, having been raised in with a certain type of life experience, and think like, yeah, everything will just kind of fall into place after I finish checking off these certain boxes or whatever. And yeah, we came into a world that doesn't allow that a lot of the time.
Right. Yeah. And especially as a woman or femme presenting person in America in particular, but I'm sure many, many, many other places in the world, that lends an additional layer of, we'll just say, fuckery to that.
Yeah. And I mean, it's sort of on a similar track. Like, there's this recurring thread of regret in this album, and like anger and frustration, where Mitski talks a lot about how she feels like she spent her entire youth obsessed with the idea of beauty and being beautiful or pretty, and how she feels like that was sort of a waste of her brain, her talents, when she could have been learning something, achieving something. And like, I mean, that's the kind of revelations that like, you can't have that perspective until you get a little bit older.
Right, for sure. And like, even when you kind of have that realization that you feel you've found that it is a waste of your time better spent elsewhere, it's hard to let go of stuff that's so deep seated like that, you know? Like it's still something that you're going to write songs about, as it turns out.
Yeah. There's a couple things from this. There was an interview that this Fern TV that you had put in the show notes that I guess is like you can only really see the text on Reddit now. But a couple things that jumped out at me is, or I guess the main thing that jumped out at me about that interview is she talks about wanting writers to trust that their audience is intelligent and human, and wanting you as the listener to trust her as a songwriter, which I think is something that, I think she kind of calls out the same sort of frustration with very generalized or dumbed down lyrics. And I think like you can see that in her writing where she's trying to tell these very specific personal stories. And, and that's the kind of thing that like sometimes a first record is like way too ramblingly confessional, but this is not that. This is kind of like the perfect amount of here's a really, a vivid story that works and is resonant.
Yeah, and I would 100% believe that is a very very much a response to the kind of detached indie rock of the day back in the like early 2010s, because that was what was out there and what was getting accolades at the time. Yeah,
and I have that same kind of frustration with that entire genre. It's something that just never appealed to me.
Yeah. And you know what? If this is what becomes of it, is that we get a reaction like this and it produces an artist like Mitski, might have been worth it.
Yeah. All right, should we get into the songs?
Yeah, let's get into them.
So this album starts off with Liquid Smooth, which is largely a piano ballad. This whole album sounds way more like an Ingrid Michaelson or Regina Spektor style record than I really thought that it would. It's very piano driven, and has that kind of like chamber pop vibe. There's some like roomy drum sounds, ambient guitars, and these like operatic strings that come in. And along with some like messing with a tape machine for effects and stuff like that. I think this is one of the early. They're all early songs, but one of the first couple songs that she and Scott Moriarty worked on together. What do you think of this one?
It's a really great way to open the record, because like it does feel, it feels very much like a tone setting piece in terms of both lyrical content and kind of sonic content for the record, because like a good chunk of this record is piano based, like that's Mitski's primary instrument. But it really kind of introduces the quality of the songs that you're going to hear, insofar that like everything feels like a little dark for the most part until we get to, I guess, Real Men later on, which is kind of goofy. But for the most part, the songs on this record are kind of dark, kind of haunting. And I obviously mean all of this in like a complimentary way. I just don't have better words for it. But like, yeah, just the way this song builds is just like really immaculately done. And like in a way, I'm sure that's partially a product of it being one of the first things that they worked on together, was that like this had probably the most time to kind of take root and grow into what it ultimately ended up being. But yeah, I don't know, like it sets the tone musically, it sets the tone lyrically. Like we are immediately kind of thrust into these ideas of like, what does it mean to be a woman at my age? What does it mean to me? What does it mean to everybody else? And in what ways is that creating friction in my life? How much of that do I actually want to deal with? How much of that do I have no choice but to deal with? And like that is definitely a feeling that you hit in your late teens, early 20s, before like things actually start falling apart for you physically. But like, you start to get hints of it. Like you start thinking about that kind of thing. Like, oh man, like I can like perceive that I'm aging. Like youth is fleeting. And I don't know if that's actually a bad thing or not. And that seems like that's a lot of what this is grappling with, especially from the perspective of being a woman under the male gaze.
Right. And it's this idea that this line, "I'm beautiful, I know, because it's the season," which I mean seems to me at least to be referring to like fashion magazines and like, you know, new fashion seasons, and this idea that if you like can get the next thing, then you will be beautiful. These, you know, the corporations can make you beautiful, or they tell you that you can be if you buy their stuff. Which is then tied to this idea that like later on in the songs, "I'm an organism, I'm chemical." That's all this idea that is there a purpose to trying to be beautiful? Are you just like a vessel for biological reproduction? And it's this like, you know, it's one of those things that it's like, it kind of sucks to be thinking about that stuff when you're, you know, 21 or whatever. God, yeah. When, you know, you still have, you know, ideally many years of life ahead of you. But that's sort of that's what this record is. It's the sadness and the frustration of realizing it's like, oh, I guess I have to think about this stuff now because that's just the way that I am.
Yeah. I have seen people before me get tossed out to some degree. You know, just no longer seen as objects of desire. And like, while that is, you know, that is on the people who are, you know, tossing them out more so than it is on them, it is still a thing that happens, and it's a horrifying prospect.
Yeah. This song also works in his one line that she sings in Japanese. I think it's the only time on this record that she does this.
Yeah, I believe so.
But you know, it makes that one line take on even more weight. I think this phrase of "before I crumble or collapse."
Yeah. And like, I'm sorry, I'm going to just preface all this by saying, I know we talked about it and mentioned it in the Gentleman A episode. I'm a white dude. This is not my place to speak, but like, yeah, I think that is a nice touch because like Asian American women have a particularly, they're particularly fetishized over here. And it's gross and horrifying in many and varied ways. And I think kind of like putting that at the forefront in this song, like really does give it an extra layer of depth here.
For sure. Anything else on this song?
No, I think we can go ahead and move on to Wife.
Yeah. Wife, even more like, I think, personal and searching song about like, what does it mean to be a woman, and how, like, you know, and the idea that the idea of womanhood is so tied up in childbirth. It ties back to this idea like, I am an organism, I'm chemical from Liquid Smooth, I think. And this idea of like, you know, what is the value of a woman's life in society's eyes if you can't bear children? Yeah, and also there's this kind of additional layer of the complicated feelings that arise when you can't do that, and that is like, it's not a choice. Like you want to be able to have that choice even if that's not something you want to do with your life. Yeah, I don't know what it is specifically, and I probably could sit with it for a little longer and like actually figure it out. But this is one of the couple songs on this record where I get have you listened to Lingua Ignota or any of the Kristen Hayter projects before? A little bit, not extensively.
Okay, I get vibes of her vocals from this song and I think a couple of other songs on this record, and it might partially be because of the piano, but I think it's mostly just the vocal affect that Mitski throws on some of these lines. But it's Kristen Hayter also like writes songs from a very specifically, a very specifically woman perspective, even darker than this stuff, like way darker. But like, I feel like the same severity is given here, and I think that it really like brings something extra to the song. And I really love that. This is many years before Lingua Ignota is a thing. They're probably both in art school about the same time though, so maybe that's a factor. Yeah. I mean, this does feel like, I mean, we're all roughly the same age, and I do feel like I remember this being a time where I started sort of like there's more sort of mainstream writing about this stuff, at least in my, you know, liberal arts school world. Right. Yeah.
I really like in the second verse the first line where she says, I watch a dream. That she can't quite say that she has this dream. There's this sense of disconnect from it, this distance, because like if without this distance, it just hurts too much to want, this child to daydream I'd give him a name of my own.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, yeah, it is. Yeah, it's a lot.
It's a heavy song. It
is a really heavy song.
Really, like the emotional depth of this record comes out like right away in these first two songs.
Yeah, no, like this is I need to scroll back up in my notes to see the original track list. Yeah, this was actually way later in the album originally. This was the fifth song on the record. Eric was second originally.
Okay.
Which is wild because like I feel like this like kind of knocks the door down with kind of the even more introspective dark side of this record, even more so beyond what Liquid Smooth gave us.
Yeah, it's sort of like daring too, I think, though, to say like, okay, right up front, this is what you're going to have to grapple with as you go through this album. I like it.
Oh yeah, I love it. I honestly think that this feels like the canonical second song to me, and that's probably just because that's how I've experienced it. But I like it where it is.
Yeah. Next up is Abby, which is built around a bed of a cappella vocal loops, a different production style from the first song. This is a very Ingrid Michaelson thing. There's this incredible version of The Chain that she does, that Ingrid Michaelson does, that I'm kind of obsessed with, that has a very similar vocal looping thing going on. And this has the kind of a full band stuff that comes in later with some drum loops. I think the song is really great. This sort of about this, just sort of the idea of potential, the hunger to be something, to set something free within yourself.
Yeah. I really love this song. Yeah, it is. I kind of read it as this was kind of the theme I was talking about before, like the how you never really figure your shit out, but you feel like you have to at some point, and like kind of the yearning for that, and the yearning for like a solid like sign of moving in the right direction or something like that.
Yeah, there's a certainty to it, even if you don't know how you're gonna get there.
Exactly. Yeah. But I also really I love the arrangement on this. That just kind of like having everything be a cappella until that kind of drum machine comes in later is really inspired.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
I really loved the line, the couplet rather. There's a light that I can see, but only it seems when there's darkness in me. We're gonna throw it back to another band we've covered. Really reminded me of the line, "You only hear the music when your heart begins to break" by MCR.
Oh yeah,
that felt a very direct parallel there, even though that came out after. But it's fine.
Yeah.
Or no, it came out before. It could have been a direct inspiration.
Maybe.
Who knows?
After that is Brand New City, which then another total genre turn here. This is like a grungy, stompy song in the middle of this otherwise kind of quiet album, piano-based album. But this is these like huge lead guitar melodies. I think this song rocks. It is, the only one of, I guess, two songs that are like, let's do a full band rock and roll thing. But this thing's really cool.
It really is. There was an interview in I think it was the Tribune, maybe one of the Chicago publications here, where the interviewer kind of brings up that this song sounds like a predecessor to "Bury Me at Makeout Creek," and I totally buy that. But yeah, like again, we've already kind of talked about how this album seems like it's trying a lot of different things, and obviously some of those things end up sticking. Even if it like skips over an album later. Yeah, I think this song absolutely rules. There's some organ on this song that I think is really great. There's specifically a incredible descending organ line behind the second verse, like just like not chromatically going down, but just like going down the scale It's like kind of subtle, but it really accompanies the vocals well.
Yeah, there's a lot of great stuff musically going on in this song. Also, just I love this bridge that if I gave up on being pretty, I wouldn't know how to be alive, which feels like it like sort of completes a thought that has been going through these first few songs. This idea that you're in your early 20s and you're already starting to feel like things are ending, like time and age are catching up to you and stripping away your opportunities. And what is my identity going to be when I don't look the way I do right now?
Yeah. Well, and then right after that, we get the line that the title comes from, the I should move to a brand new city and teach myself how to die, which is great on its own, but it's also just like punctuated by this scream.
Oh, yeah.
Which, man, Mitski's great at screaming.
Right. Well,
I don't know what to tell you.
On the interview with Scott Moriarty, he talks about this a lot too, that it's just like everyone kind of knew that she was absurdly talented. You know, everyone who heard her, who saw her perform was like, oh, she's got something. She could go somewhere. But like, you never really think that someone, you know, even when you see like a real true talent like that, you never really think they're going to be like a A-list pop star, because there's, you know, a dozen of those a generation.
Yeah, for real. Like it doesn't seem like it's going to happen to somebody, you know, even though it can.
Yeah. But yeah, this song is a real great example of just like the versatility of this record too.
Yeah. I think it's a pretty stunning, kind of in a weird way, centerpiece of the record, even though it like is very different from anything else on here. I just want to mention how massive the choruses on this song are, especially the last one. It's wonderful.
Then we get Eric, a sort of jazzy song built around a Rhodes part with lots of crazy, odd percussion stuff going on. Man, I gotta say, brutal to have your name as the title of this song.
I don't feel bad for Eric at all, but I also feel a little bad for Eric.
Yeah, I mean, it's a song about, like, you know, being in this purely physical relationship that she wants to be something more than it is, and that feeling is not reciprocated. It's a pretty, I mean, it's what we were talking about with the specificity of story and this, like, there are clearly like very specific real moments in the song, and they're just rendered in so simply and so brutally that like the emotions just are just lay you bare.
Yeah, and like I feel like describing the song as like what it's about, like in a succinct way, you know, being in a like one-sided physical relationship where you want more than the other person does, and therefore you don't feel like you can ask for it. The lyrics here really like sell how that feels over like what it is to an outside observer, and that degree of specificity is really like what gets it here, because like I went into this song and I'm like, this is fucking horrifying. I hate this motherfucker. I hate him so much. And like I'm sure in a like when I stepped back and I was like, oh, this is what this song is about, I'm like, that doesn't capture it though at all, which is a wild thing to like, you know, realize, you know, kind of stepping back from it and then realizing, oh, like, no, like when I'm in this song, I'm in this song.
Yeah. And the way that the arrangement of all the layered vocals builds at the end, this really like haunting, I want thing that's very cool. One of the great production moments on the album.
Yeah, and it all starts with that the like very soft harmonies under It Cries a Soft Weep Like Mine, and then just like goes off from there. It's absolutely nuts. I love it.
Yeah, that whole last chorus is really good.
Yeah. The other fun little like production thing that I didn't really notice until it was mentioned on the podcast was that synth line that becomes a vocal line. Like it's just like it's like just a like single synth note, like just being kind of played over and over again, and eventually like Mitski gets layered in over it and eventually replaces that sound, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, that was awesome. So to hear like that isolated track for that.
Yeah.
After that is Bag of Bones. I saw, I think on Genius says this is her first song that she wrote.
That was mentioned in a New Yorker interview.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
It's unclear based on what I saw, but it is thought to be the first Mitski song written for Mitski by Mitski.
Yeah, it's an early one for sure.
Yeah.
And largely piano and vocal. It has this persistent ambient background track that like adds this kind of tension to the song, which is pretty cool. It's a trick that's used a couple times in this back half of the album. This song I think is so striking. Possibly my favorite song on this record. It's just very much a dark nighttime song about sort of walking home and reflecting about the hollowness of this relationship and of this sort of pursuit of beauty. This idea that, again, is we've talked about a bunch of times already on this album.
Yeah, like this song stretches, like comes out of Eric so well. Like it feels like a continuation of that story.
Yeah.
Even though we do get a like nice little melodica break between that song and this song starting up in earnest, because we all loved a melodica back in like 2007 to 2013 ish. Not to make fun of the melodica, I love the melodica. It's a great instrument. Yeah, I don't know, like another devastating chorus on this song. Illuminate my pores and you tear me apart, like just referencing like walking into a place with stark lighting and like seeing your own face and being horrified by that, and like, even though it's just a like, well, I'm a human person and I have pores, they don't need to like be hidden all the time, and like the complicated feelings that come with that realization.
Yeah, that's a great lyric. The other ones that stuck out at me, there was the let's shake this poet out of the beast is such a good image to end the song on. But even before we get there, the second verse really is, it's this that's I think kind of the highlight of the song lyrically, where it's talking about sex as this sort of like idea of like just this need to get through it thing, which is, so sad and in this like messy room. And then it gets to this ending of the verse where it's like, I hope you leave right before the sun comes up so I can watch it alone. Like it's just the sadness and loneliness of the song is so visceral in that moment.
Yeah. Just the I don't want to waste a beautiful moment on you.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
Yeah. It's such an incredible turn of phrase. Like it encompasses a lot of like, if you didn't get how she felt up to this point, you do now.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, I also noted, let's shake the poet out of the beast. Like that is an incredible line.
It's good. And this song kind of transitions pretty smoothly into Door. Almost feels like is sort of an epilogue or interlude between Bag of Bones and Pearl Diver. I can't even look. Are those? Is this sequence the same as the original track list? These last three?
Let me take a look here. Yeah, the last. Yeah, it's Bag of Bones, Door, and then Pearl Diver on the original track list.
Yeah, these, because I would have been surprised if those had been in any other order, because these feel like a very intentionally sequenced, almost like a 3/8 movement suite or something like that.
Yeah, definitely.
Because this one is a lot of piano, but it's using these studio effects or like tape machine warping or whatever to play with the piano reverb, especially in a way that it was just so interesting to listen to. And it's this, and similar to Abby, it's a song about the search for happiness, this longing, and this idea that like, there is this door out there that might lead you to everything that you want, to happiness, to this something that you think you can be, but then you just look out and wonder like how could I have lost it? You missed it somehow.
Yeah, like this thing that is just slightly out of your reach, and it's there, but you can't find it. You've maybe caught glimpses of it before, but you've never actually been able to fully approach it. Which, damn.
Yeah, it's another heavy idea.
It is. I do really love the way that, like you mentioned, the kind of piano is played with on the song, because like it's by and large just like two notes. There's like a couple of occasions where that changes, but like it really, like the feel of the song is in the production and the vocals and the lyrics. This is another one of those songs where I was like, oh, there's some Kristen Hayter flavor on this. The way she sings dark and underneath the dark is gonna haunt me for the rest of my life.
And then we get to Pearl Diver, which I'm considering the closing track. I know Real Men is track 9 on the streaming version, but I mean, this is obviously the closing track of the album.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is where all the ideas of the record come together. This obsession with beauty. It's how ultimately it's unachievable and uncatchable, and it just makes you pursue it deeper and deeper until it kills you. And this is, I mean, I think it's the kind of the peak of her vocal performance on the album. The arrangements, every element of this album is at its best on this song.
Yeah, definitely. Like, it is the fact that we get so much out of a chorus that has 3 if you count diver and dive as the same word. I guess down is at the end too, but yeah, like this is just impeccable songwriting. The vocal melodies on this are great. The melody in the bridge, the more or less wordless bridge, just absolutely goes off. There's some great horns in the bridge too. Like, yeah, just everything about this comes together so well.
And it has this sort of dual interpretation, or maybe not dual, you can read this as one or the other or both, of this idea that does she see herself as the diver who is chasing this unachievable beauty, or does she see herself as the object and another person is pursuing her to their own death because they can't quite get to her. And I think that adds a lot of depth to the song because you can read it either way.
Yeah, and I think either interpretation is very valid and, lends, a lot to the song. And the fact that both of them are present at the same time, like, just makes it work, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things I was like, man, if I wrote this song when I was 21 or whatever, and like, I would have just stopped. I don't know that I ever could have done better than that.
That's fair. But we know she did, and for that, we're grateful.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it is a short album. It is, I mean, it is a student project is what it's usually described as, but it is really impressive. Not even like grading it on a curve. It's a pretty impressive album no matter what.
Yeah, I don't know if or when the last time she played any of these songs was, but I would be super happy to see one of these songs live.
Yeah. And there is also Real Men, which is like we mentioned before, was track 4 on the original release. Now is kind of relegated to bonus track status. Another sort of similar to Brand New City that's got a full band feel, cool rhythm section stuff going on in this song. But it is pretty out there for this album. I can kind of see why she considers it something different or separate.
Yeah, it's thematically, I think, in line with a lot of what else is going on in this record. But since it is like, it takes a more humorous approach to kind of looking at the ways in which masculinity, the male gaze, affects women. Like, this is like, there's a line in here. What is it? Is it real men don't eat?
Yeah.
Yeah, real men don't eat because they're above that, damn it. Like, it's a genuinely, like, in many ways funny song, even though it is like very much addressing a very serious thing. But yeah, like, honestly, this is just really fun. There's some really great drum and bass interplay here. I love the way it ends, just on that like really loud do it and just everything stops.
Yeah.
It's a fun song, but like, yeah, I don't know that it quite jives with the rest of what's here. So I kind of understand why it got relegated to pseudo B-side status.
Yeah, for sure. In terms of other B-sides, there are a few holiday songs that were on compilations around this time.
Yeah, I listened to those. They were, I think most of them are actually from like before this album. My understanding is that like this is there's this kind of collective Discomfort and Joy. All of these are Discomfort and Joy Presents compilations that are themed around various holidays. And Mitski was involved in a few of them around this time, like 2010, 2011-ish. There's a cover of Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas, which is Have Yourself a Mitski Little Christmas. it is. I just want to shout out the compilation name, which is "Have Yourself a Merry Little Half-Assed Christmas." And then the follow-up, one of the follow-ups to that, the next one that Mitski is on, is "Have Yourself a Merry Little Half-Assed Christmas Volume 3, Slapped in the Face by Christmas," where Mitski covers Christmas Time Is Here. And it is very much in the tradition of the Vince Guaraldi, jazzy, take on that song. So it works really well. It's a lot longer than I expected it to be. It's like 5 or so minutes long. But then there's also a cover of the Billy Rose and Lee David standard, "Tonight You Belong to Me," which is a nice little like dual vocal ukulele and I think banjo duet. It sounds like a banjo. I'm not 100% on that, but it's fun. The comp name is less fun on that one. It's Valentine Volume 2, 14 Ways to Say I Love You. And the cover is borrowed from American Beauty, which I don't love because I fucking hate that movie. Anyway, yeah, those are the only other tracks from this era. We get kind of more like B-sides later on in her career, which again makes sense. Like kind of everything went into this album. Everything else is like more or less fully unrelated.
Yeah, I mean this was a short record, kind of a short episode, but there will be lots more to talk about in the coming weeks.
For sure.
So do you have a random recommendation for this week?
I do. I'm pretty sure I haven't recommended this before, but thinking about people writing some of my favorite songs in college reminded me of an album by a band artist called Sewing Pattern. Sewing Pattern is my friend from college, Angie, and on her second record, her first record was a song cycle based on Sufjan Stevens, Illinois, but instead of being about Illinois, it's about bicycles. And incorporates a lot of bike sounds into it. It's also very fun. But she put out a self-titled album in, I want to say I think right around this time, 2011 or 2012, which features a couple of songs that I was in a songwriting class with her, and I had the privilege of hearing like early versions of some of these songs. And one of them is called Love and Sadness, which is to this day one of my favorite songs. This album is like very well put together, features a lot of my other friends, and I have an awful lot of fondness for it. And yeah, it's not available on any streaming services except for YouTube. So if you want to look it up there, go for it. I highly encourage you to do so. Otherwise, you're going to have to track down a CD on Discogs. Yeah, that's what I've got. What do you have?
I'm going to recommend the new EP by Del Paxton. This EP is called Dog Eared. Is that right? I didn't have it pulled up here.
Yeah, that is what it's called.
This was a surprise release just a couple weeks ago. 3 songs, all like pretty long for sort of an emo punk band. But they go in some really interesting directions. I really liked All Day, Every Day, All Night, their 2017 album, and everything else they've released has also been really good. So this was like a nice surprise delight. This came out physically as a split with our Friends in Retirement Party, which is cool. So I think that's out there if you're looking for it on vinyl. And this EP rocks. Check it out.
It's really great. I gave it a listen last week and I really loved it too.
Cool. So we will be back next week talking about Retired from Sad, New Career in Business. And what a great album title.
What a great album title.
And in the meantime, you can find us on the internet at noisefloorpodcast.com. Follow us on Instagram at noisefloorpod and send us email at noisefloorpodcast@gmail.com. And we will see you next week.
See you next week.